We have first of all Lidija Branilović, who will go first. Then we have Novak, who will go a second. Then we have Mariko Uremović, who will be third. Me, fourth. Sandra Vida, who will be fifth. And finally, for the crowning of the evening, we have Evelina Mišti. You will remain standing, and here's the microphone for you. Can you make sure you get it close to your lips? Very close to your lips. I don't want to. And this one is called Her Majesty, the Red Pen. Now, an important thing is that the presenters have no control whatsoever over the slides. So it's 20 seconds per slide, and they automatically move on. 20 slides altogether, 6 minutes, 40 seconds. 20 times. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So, you ready?
Good evening. So when I first heard of Pecha Kucha from our Sonia, I thought it's just another way of those Asians to sell us a new term for something we already know of, because it's usually like that. But seeing it on YouTube, this one, I found it very useful and rather challenging, and I immediately started doing mine, and here is the result. My name is Lidija Branilović, and I'm an English teacher at Dr. Ivan Novak Elementary School in Macinec, where I teach mostly Roma population. I'll be talking about the influence of the red pen on my students. This presentation is the result of research I made among my students, mainly concerning the use of dictation in ELT. What do you think are the main problems in ELT today? Well, my research has shown that those are the lack of learners' motivation, insufficient time, resources and materials, mostly overcrowded English classrooms, and the influence of the red pen on students' self-esteem. When talking about red as a color of a spectrum, it's often described as rebellious, sometimes embarrassing, and always demonstrated. We'll put the political significance aside. So red is for those who deliberately don't obey rules of behavior and people in authority, like the red card in football match. Wanting to show that you care for someone can be described as a romantic red. We talk about love, romance, feelings, even our heart is red, especially if it's broken, but still it symbolizes something beautiful and worth living for. And when I mention life and living, did you know, and this is a medical as well as a social fact, that there are as many red blood cells in just one drop of human blood as there are people using London buses every day, which are also red. I never took a ride before they retired. So now there is a slight difference between mistakes and errors that needs to be explained, no matter who does them. So mistakes are when learners are not using correctly the language they already know, and they require direct feedback and remedial treatment. And the word mistake is used more frequently in spoken English. On the other hand, we have errors, which are largely an outcome of learners developing competence and which may be more used for planning future work. They are more severe than mistakes as a word, but in fact, error and mistake are synonyms, symbolize a wrong action attributed to bad judgment or ignorance or inattention. Red stands out and it usually symbolizes wrong, and most people write things that need to be corrected in blue and black. Here is an example of student dictation with many mistakes, corrected in red. And it's universal tradition, and I think 90% of you are doing the same, correcting their work in red pen. Another example is this formal letter. A student had to copy the letter, but to replace informal expressions with more formal ones, given at the bottom. I'm aware of the fact that we can't actually evaluate students' handwriting, but I couldn't possibly read this. He didn't get an F. Every teacher, at least in our public schools, needs some equipment to be real. So, directory of students, laptop and projector if you're ICT educated, color chalk and board, which is already there if you're creative enough, and of course, the red pen. Don't you all have these things? There is a growing school of thought that using red ink to mark and correct students' work is damaging to their self-esteem, as it's angry and confrontational color traditionally associated with mistakes. All of a sudden you need to involve school psychologists and parents, and you surely don't want to do that. But if you accidentally think otherwise, red does have its benefits. It's possibly the easiest color to differentiate from blue or black that your students will have written, which may make it easier for them to see where they have made mistakes and learn from them. Just an example, if someone writes homework or essay in red, I correct it in blue. My research was made of a simple questionnaire with quite simple 3 questions about teachers' use of the red pen, its influence on them, and possible replacement. After finishing it, they started thinking some more of the red pen, and they were saying day after day that many teachers stopped using it so much. The first question was, how does the use of the red pen in correcting your mistakes influence you? So around 22% of them answered that the red pen had a bad influence on them, 25 are motivated by the red pen, and 52 the red pen doesn't have any influence whatsoever. The second question was this one, which other color would you use instead? 23% of students would change red with green, and also that many students would change it with purple. But still, 53.06% of students wouldn't change it at all. I suppose 52 of them from the first question answered this, the last one here. The third and final question was, how many teachers use a red pen for correcting mistakes? 15% answered all of them, 62 answered most of them, 18% answered just a few, which is also possible, but it's 3% of students who answered none we are worried about, because I believe they have some serious problems. The results of research were quite different for my colleagues. Some were surprising, some were understandable, motivating, but also useful, and on the other hand, useless. Some of them couldn't see the importance of research, but we're not all the same. Finally, when someone tells me red, I immediately think of the traffic lights. Well, I don't know why. I'm a driver, a good one, never crashed, till now. But I become nervous when there is a traffic jam because some old lady who's dragging herself down the street. And I just hate when the traffic lights turns red just in front of me, don't you? There was an Australian research about the influence of the red traffic lights on the drivers. They had an idea to change it to purple because it's psychologically bad for humans' health to be looking at so much red lights around them. Well, those Australians. But when you think about it, wouldn't we all prefer different sometimes?
That's absolutely fabulous, Lidija. I don't know if you realise how difficult this is to do this, to have 20 slides, to get the timing right. It's also an activity that you can do with your students, and I'd really recommend it. Presentation skills are very important, and if you did only 10 slides for half the time, then it would be an interesting exercise to do. And then with your students to evaluate, to get evaluation criteria about what makes a good Pecha Kucha, and then to try it out.